Hi, my name is Nathan Barsanti, and today I'll be discussing the design of the Lawrence Pedestrian Realm located in Lawrence, Indiana. Lawrence, Indiana is just northeast outside of Indianapolis. The purpose of this project was to redevelop the transportation zones within the city so that they can accommodate all modes of transportation for the sake of pedestrians, bicyclists, public transportation users, and personal vehicles. Right now, the city is really personal vehicle dominated, so there isn't a lot of room for sidewalk space and bike lanes, as well as there is very minimal public transportation access within the city. Um, so this pedestrian realm is serving the community by creating multiple modes of transportation networks that are safe, accessible, and sustainable in the community. Um, the compiled evaluations models that you can see on the left side of the poster address the zones within the city that currently lack pedestrian infrastructure and have space for redevelopment. The data gathered for this project came from interviews with stakeholders in the community, from Purdue Extension and the Indianapolis Public Transportation Corporation, as well as I gathered a lot of information from GIS spatial data. The appropriate layers that I've compiled look over natural systems, social systems, and physical systems within the region to address possible constraints and opportunities. Um, they serve to pinpoint specific locations within the city that are in critical, moderate, and low need for redevelopment. And so after exploring the city a little bit more in depth and looking over the site conditions, it was clear that there are many opportunities throughout the city. Much of the existing infrastructure hasn't seen redevelopment since it was originally implemented. The city is mostly suburban in nature and is incredibly personal vehicle dominated. So this pedestrian realm is really looking to advocate for the people who don't use personal vehicles every single day or are trying to find new ways of transportation to accommodate for their travels. And so with the layers that I looked over to understand the site more, we looked at open space coverage in areas that have been developed, as well as areas that are underdeveloped as well. And then for social systems, looking at traffic counts and understanding what what streets are being mostly used on a regular basis. Pendleton Pike being the main corridor within the city is really the area that had the most amount of attention for the project, as well as surrounding streets that would provide infrastructure for bikers and pedestrians. So the research question that I asked going into this was, where would a mid-block connection and additional bus routes be the most impactful to the community? So to answer this question of where these mid-block connections and bus routes would have the most impact, I felt it was appropriate to incorporate data about from zoning, existing bus routes, traffic counts, um, as well as understanding the layout of the community. Um, so in order to better understand what program elements to place within the landscape, um, it was necessary to look over these layers and place them on top of each other to really understand where I can see opportunity um, at specific intersections and point of interest along a street network, and where there's also constraints or less likelihood for usage by community members. So the steps in order to answer this question were to first define it, evaluate the data that was gathered, and then layer the information on top of one another. and then define the results. And so the results from the data collected allowed for an impact model to be made. The impact model shows locations that will be the most beneficial in having mid-block connections and additional bus routes. And moving on from this impact model, I was able to move into a design phase where I really was focusing on the needs of community members. And with that, there were a lot of benefits with the design that I've compiled. So some of the results that I've gathered from the design of this pedestrian realm were that increased bike lanes have provided greater opportunity for transportation and recreation. Groundwater treatment systems, such as bioswales, uh, can sustainably infiltrate and treat stormwater runoff on site. That's one thing that Lawrence was lacking is a true stormwater management system within their streetscape network, as well as understanding that public transportation is critical to the success of an urban community. And so trying to take in all of these points and implement them into a streetscape design that can really better serve the community was a big aspect of this project. And I believe that with these implementations that have been put into Lawrence and the surrounding community, there will be many benefits to residents as well as people that travel through the city. Thank you for listening, and that will sum up the Lawrence Pedestrian Realm.